I call the members to order, and under Standing Order 12.58, the Leader of the House, Julie James, will answer questions on behalf of the First Minister today. The first question, Mark Reckless.
Will the First Minister, or should I say Leader of the House, confirm at what cost the Welsh Government will look at alternatives to the current proposed plans for the M4 Relief Road?
A public inquiry has been taking place over the last 12 months to scrutinise all aspects of the project, including costs and suggested alternatives. The independent inspector's report and the business case will inform a final decision this year on whether to proceed with the scheme.
But the First Minister told us in 2015 that the project would cost, and I quote, nowhere near £1 billion. I suppose in one sense that's correct, because the cost is now put at around £1.4 billion. If the Assembly does support the Black Route in the vote that we're now going to have, how can we trust the Welsh Government to deliver it at acceptable cost when you've shown no ability so far to do so, and the costs on the Heads of the Valley Road are out of control? Are you asking the Assembly to write you a blank cheque?
No, not at all. I'm not going to comment on the merits of the project due to the fact that a statutory final decision remains to be made, and it's quite clear that there are a wide range of views on this significant potential infrastructure investment, and it's extremely right that these views are all being heard at the inquiry and should be taken into account. The Cabinet Secretary for Economy and Transport has clearly stated in this chamber that he instructed the inquiry be comprehensive and test the need for the scheme in the light of the latest proposals for the South Wales Metro, and consider alternatives, and indeed consider the costs involved in that. Once the outcome of the inquiry is known, that will inform a final decision on whether to proceed with construction, and that will include, obviously, a business plan, which will then be put into place.
Jane Bryant.
Diolch, Llywydd. I was 13 years old when an M4 relief road around Newport was first mooted in 1991. Haven't aged. The current local public inquiry is the longest and most thorough inquiry in Welsh history, testing 7 potential routes, including the option of doing nothing. The independent public inquiry is eagerly anticipated by my constituents, and it's only right and proper to look closely at the findings when they're published later this year. As for many businesses, visitors, commuters and constituents, the option of doing nothing or more delays to a decision are costly. It's estimated that the M4 is a key artery for 70% of Wales's population and economy. Will the Leader of the House relay to the Cabinet Secretary and the First Minister the imperative of a speedy resolution once the independent inspector reports, particularly with the removal of the 7 tolls, which will increase traffic and congestion on that part of the road?
Yes, I think the member makes a fair point. Sadly, I was a little older than 13 at the start of this. Not much older, obviously. But, I mean, there are a large number of legal implications involved in the consideration of the public inquiry, and we will need to consider options once we've got the outcome of the inquiry, and that will have to include also the timing of the decision, the costing and the business plan, as I say. But absolutely, we're all aware of the serious issues on the M4 around Newport, and the Cabinet Secretary is here listening to your remarks, which I'm sure he heard.
Simon Thomas.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm sure you're not going to go ahead of the public inquiry, as you made very clearly, but I'm sure you'd agree as well that we in this Parliament have not outsourced £2 billion worth of public spending or the opportunity cost of alternative investment in alternative road transport and alternative transport methods to a public inquiry. We are the elected Assembly, and ultimately we should take that decision. I welcome the letter today from the Cabinet Secretary saying there will be a real vote in the Assembly, and to make that an even more vital and real vote, will you, both as now deputising for the First Minister and as Leader of the House and your Chief Whip, make it a free vote for your group?
Well, I'm very delighted, actually, to confirm that we'll bring forward a debate in government time on the M4 corridor around the Newport project, following the conclusion of the public local inquiry. Given the legal implications, we are currently considering options as to the timing and format of that, and I will be keeping the Assembly informed of those plans as myself, other than as deputising for the First Minister. The Cabinet Secretary for Economy and Transport has just written to all party groups in the Assembly, but he will be arranging a technical briefing with project team officials on the current position to ensure members are fully appraised of all the facts related to the scheme beforehand. So I hear what the member says and take the point he makes, but we will be considering that once we know the outcome of the inquiry.
Question 2.
Question 2, Jenny Rathbone.
What key message has the First Minister and
through the Leader of the House, taken from the recent Stay Well in Wales survey?
The survey provides a wealth of information to support work to improve population health. Its findings demonstrate that there is public support for many of the priorities set out in Prosperity for All, including our focus on early years.
Thank you very much for that. I mean, it's very clear from the survey that people expect action on public health issues to ensure that we improve the health of the nation. On top of that, today we learned that there's been a doubling of diabetes in the last 20 years, and we also heard from Cancer Research UK demanding that junk food advertising to young people should be banned because of the rise of cancers related to the poor diets that many people are consuming. So could you tell us what appetite the government now has to take action to ban junk food and generally to ensure that young people are aware of what they are what they eat, and they will only live a long life if they eat well?
Yes, well, we have a very strong track record in Wales of taking strong public health action where there is evidence that it will improve or protect population health. The Public Health Act, the Active Travel Act and the current minimum unit pricing bill are very good cases in point. We'll be continuing to prioritise such interventions where there is merit and where taking action is within the powers at our disposal. But for example, in areas such as broadcasting, we don't have all of the powers we need, but we will be looking at ways of maximising our powers and our influence in those areas where it isn't in our direct control. And we want a strategy to create a very clear vision for Wales, and this will mean working with the UK government to ensure that we can drive forward changes required to tackle, for example, obesity, growing obesity levels in children.
Angela Burns.
The Stay Well survey actually, I thought, showed a population that was very keen to take part in responsible healthcare and understood that prevention is better than cure, and showed an enormous maturity on behalf of the public, something we tend to talk down sometimes, I think, here. And one of the things that they really picked up was that 76% of the respondents wanted to see health services being offered more by employers, and employers taking more ownership of helping their employees to stay well. And we raised this last week in our debate, or the week before, in our debate on mental health, and about the cost of mental health illness to the economy, and what we need to do as individuals and as employers to help people with mental health to do well in their workplaces. Can you please, Leader of the House, perhaps outline what the Welsh Government can do to influence both the public sector and, more importantly, the private sector to ensuring that they stand by their employees and really help them through times of trouble?
Yes, I think Angela Burns makes a very good point. And the survey was very interesting, wasn't it, in terms of the appetite of people to be regulated almost in terms of public health. The Welsh Government spends about £88 million of core funding on Public Health Wales, and we have a range of measures aimed at preventing ill health, alongside a number of other public health functions. We also have the Healthy Working Wales programme, which supports employers across Wales to improve health and wellbeing at work, and has already supported around 3,500 employers in Wales, which represents about 36% of the working population of Wales. And I can also say that in looking at fair work and the fair work agenda in Wales in social partnership, one of the things we have been looking at is ways of assisting employers to help with public health promotion. Because, of course, one of the big issues is about economic inactivity and making sure that people who are in work stay in work and are able to be supported there. So it's all very much as part of the same programme. So I take the member's point entirely. We are already working in that way, and we're looking to extend that across all sectors of Welsh employers as part of our Fair Work agenda.
Caroline Jones.
Diolch, Llywydd. Leader of the House, the Stay Well in Wales survey highlighted that doctors and nurses are not the primary source of health information, probably due to the difficulty in getting an appointment with a GP or practice nurse. The situation is being made much worse by short-sighted decisions by local government. Bridgend Council intend to cut bus subsidies, which put an end to services covering a lot of Porthcawl, making it impossible for some residents to get to the new health centre. What is your government doing to ensure that local government decisions do not have an impact on people's ability to access health and social care?
I think that's really quite a stretch in terms of public health, but we have a very good working relationship with all of our local authority partners in this, and of course they're responsible for delivering social care as well. And we have a very well developed bond with them around travel and health travel in particular. And that's something that also comes up in the Workforce Partnership Council from time to time as well. So I can assure the member that we have a very good working relationship with local authorities, and they take into account all of those sorts of decisions in making some of the very difficult decisions they've had to make given the austerity agenda still being pursued by the UK government.
Questions now from the party leaders and their representatives. Leader of the UKIP group, Neil Hamilton.
When I heard that the First Minister was leaving the country, in particular because of what he said at the same time, that America was Wales's most important business partner and there are exciting opportunities that lie ahead, and he was going to the United States to press the case for developing a free trade agreement between our countries. Unfortunately, the Leader of the Opposition at Westminster immediately torpedoed those laudable aims by saying that Labour would seek to negotiate a new comprehensive UK-EU customs union, which, as we know from Mr Barnier, would not include any cherry-picking by the UK government. And as we would be out of the EU, of course, we wouldn't have anything more than the right to be consulted. How can these two conflicting positions of the First Minister of Wales and the Leader of the Opposition at Westminster now be reconciled?
Well, I don't think they're conflicting at all, because, of course, the First Minister was speaking about the potential for a free trade deal between the UK as a whole and the USA. And as we've explained on numerous previous occasions, in the sort of customs union which we envisage the UK would conduct parallel negotiations with third countries to those undertaken by the EU 27. And while talks between the US and the EU are currently in abeyance, these will undoubtedly come back onto the agenda in the coming years. It's obviously nonsensical to exclude ourselves from one of the most powerful trading blocs in the world on the basis of some dogmatic political belief.
Well, it's clearly impossible under EU law for any member state to conduct trade negotiations with a third country, because all that is reserved to the Commission in Brussels. So the Labour Party's position is totally incoherent. But I was also encouraged by what the First Minister said, that I want to reassure the United States that Wales remains an outward-looking and welcoming country. Unfortunately, that laudable statement was also undermined by the Shadow Foreign Secretary at Westminster, Emily Thornberry, who described Mr Trump as an asteroid of awfulness that has fallen on this world. She said, "I think he is a danger, and I think he is a racist." And I'm delighted that Welsh Labour's true face is on display today, agreeing with sentiments that can only do damage to the interests of the United Kingdom and the interests of the people of Wales. If the First Minister is serious about wanting to engage the Trump administration and investors from the United States in the possibilities and potential of our country here, then it pays generally in diplomacy to be nice to people rather than to insult and abuse them.
Well, I'm very glad to hear Neil Hamilton's idea of appeasement, which is not my idea of appeasement. There is a huge difference between the presidency of the United States and the United States as an entire country. The First Minister and the Labour Party have been extremely clear about the position on the customs union. We have made it explicit that it's in Wales's best interest to remain inside the customs union and actually, indeed, inside the single market. And the FM could not have been more clear in that regard.
Well, clarity of that kind is normally to be found only in the pages of Alice in Wonderland or Alice Through the Looking Glass, because you can't be inside and outside at the same time. But the First Minister I see intends, in the course of his visit, to talk to Hillary Clinton, and nothing wrong with that in itself. But as Hillary Clinton actually lost the election for the presidency to President Trump, wouldn't it actually have made more sense to try to meet with people in the Trump administration rather than the candidate for the party which lost the election the last time the presidency was up for grabs?
Well, the Leader of UKIP makes his usual nonsensical alignments between two completely different things. Of course, the First Minister is conducting a series of important negotiations with a range of investors right across the United States and Canada, as it happens, in the best interests of this country. And of course, he will be meeting with Hillary Clinton and a range of other people who have an interest in continuing our good relationship.
On behalf of the Leader of Plaid Cymru, Rhys Piotrwerth. Thank you very much, Llywydd.
House, you said that the First Minister had been very clear on the customs union issue. I beg to differ, so I'll keep my first question very simple. Does your government favour staying in the EU customs union or a customs union?
Yes, I think it's very important that we maintain an open mind during the negotiations with the EU, and therefore we need to have a customs union of one sort or another. If that turns out to be the customs union as a result of the negotiations, well, that would be very interesting. But in the spirit of a negotiation, of course, we have to keep everything on the table.
I'm afraid to say that's a regression from the position taken by this government some months ago. The joint white paper securing Wales's future concludes that Wales and the UK should remain in the EU customs union, and I quote, we, that's you and us, are unconvinced that the possible benefits of withdrawing from the EU customs union outweigh the costs. And in fact, every single reference to customs union in government policy since is to the existing customs union. There's not a single reference to a new, as yet non-existent type of customs union. So why, I ask, has the First Minister changed his tone or changed his language? Why does he now talk about a customs union, as do you? Is it because the position, as outlined by Jeremy Corbyn, is at odds with what's in the interests of Wales and the people of Wales, and for want of a better term, the First Minister therefore is having to fudge it?
No, I disagree entirely. I think it's a very sensible point to make that we need to be in a position to negotiate the very best possible deal for Wales and for the UK as a whole as part of these negotiations and leaving the European Union. And therefore, we need to try and negotiate the best possible deal. Now, I personally think the best possible deal is the current state of play. I'm a Remainer, I make no bones about it. But clearly in a negotiation, you need to get the best deal, and a negotiation is a two-way street, and we have to see what's on the table from the other side and what their negotiating stance is. So it would be ridiculous to rule out all other options.
But what I don't understand is if you were happy as a government to set out with us what our position was when this document was published, why is that still not the case now? I want to work together on this. I'm really proud that through the work that's been done by Steffan Lewis, more than anybody on our side, it's good to see Steffan with us today, that we have been able to bring government towards us on some of these core issues, and will continue to try to do so. Now, apart from the customs union issue, I think Jeremy Corbyn's Labour position has another fundamental error, in that he is committed to pulling out of the single market. He wants to pick and choose aspects of that market, but President Tusk, as we know, has said that there can be no cherry picking and no single market a la carte. The solution is that we need both customs union and single market. Jobs in Wales need both customs union and single market. The port of Holyhead in my constituency, our constituents, all of us need both. It feels as if at every corner the Welsh position is being undermined and undercut by the whims of Westminster, and by that I mean the whims of government and opposition at Westminster. Now, you know that the position I have set out, that Plaid Cymru has set out, makes sense. Will you help us deliver it?
We've been very clear as the Welsh Government, and indeed in cooperation with Plaid Cymru, about the very best possible outcome for Wales, and we're still very clear about that. But I reiterate what I said. This is a negotiation. It is about getting the best out of the negotiation overall. And so if you rule everything out except the position you start from, that's not a negotiation. You're very likely to fail. So I think it's a very sensible thing to have a range of options on the table which you can start the negotiations with. It remains to be seen where the negotiations will end up. I personally still believe that staying inside the European Union as a whole is the best option for Wales. That's not something that people voted for, and we're in a position of having to negotiate the best deal we can short of that.
Arweinydd yr wrthblaid, Andrew.
Leader of the Opposition, Andrew Davis.
Leader of the House, just before we started today, a letter came from the Cabinet Secretary for the Economy and Transport highlighting the government's intention to have a vote on the M4 Relief Road, and I welcome that movement on behalf of the government. In the letter, it's 3 paragraphs long, so it's not particularly long. It indicates that the Cabinet Secretary is seeking legal advice as to the timing of the debate. So I'm assuming that the government have set their mind on what type of debate you will be bringing forward for members to vote on. Will it be a to-note debate? Will it be a budget vote? Or will it be a more substantive vote around the inquiry itself? Because, as I said, the letter clearly indicates it's more of a timing issue, and the government is quite clear as to the type and nature of debate that we will be able to vote on. And I'd be grateful for some clarity on that particular issue.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, as I said earlier on in the answer to the question, we've confirmed we'll bring forward the debate in government time on the M4 corridor Iran report, following the conclusion of the public local inquiry. The debate is likely to be a two-note debate at this point in time, but I'm hesitant to say that categorically because we don't yet know the outcome of the public inquiry. So until we know the outcome, we don't really know what we can form the debate around. So I'm prepared at this point to give an indication, but I can't be categoric about it because until we know the outcome of the public inquiry, we're not in a position to be categoric about it.
In fairness, I'm basing my questions on the letter, obviously, and the letter indicates that the government has set its mind on the type of debate we'd be voting on. Well, it doesn't tie into the public inquiry. It talks more about the timings of the debate based on legal advice. But you do indicate that it doesn't seem as if it's in the government's mind at the moment to bring forward a budget vote or an allocation of resources to this project. As you said earlier, it is a to-note, because there's quite a difference there is for members to vote on. And given this is the largest capital project that the Welsh Government will be bringing forward, I think it's important for us to understand exactly what the Government is proposing. And so, can I just be crystal clear? You are at the moment minded that that vote will be a to-note vote?
Yes, currently we are minded that it will be a two-note debate, but I want to reiterate that until we see the outcome of the public inquiry and the consequent legal advice and so on, it's impossible to be categoric. So I'm not in a position to be categoric about it for the best possible reasons, which is we need to react to it in the light of whatever the outcome of the public inquiry is. So when we have that, then I'll be able to give an indication of what the government's position is.
I'm grateful for an element of clarity. I appreciate the public inquiry is still ongoing, but obviously I'm basing my questions on the letter that was received by members. On another transport issue that came to light over the recess was Abellio's withdrawal from the rail franchise that is currently up for negotiation and tender from the Welsh Government. A bitterly disappointing outcome, obviously. Now 50% of the bidders have withdrawn from the process. One would ask the question, did the Welsh Government or Transport for Wales work proactively with Abellio to try and resolve the problem around Carillion, to keep them in the race for the tender? Because the more ideas, hopefully the better franchise agreement we will get. And one thing that train users in Wales deserve is a better service than they're getting at the moment. I think, irrespective of party colour, we can all agree with that, we can. So what I'd like an indication from the Leader of the House, if possible, is the government confident that the two remaining bids are robust and will go the duration? And secondly, what clarity can she give around the engagement with Abellio to try and resolve some of the issues they had with the Carillion collapse, given Carillion's long-standing financial problems that were well understood for many months? Was there much engagement from Transport for Wales and the Welsh Government to try and facilitate them staying within the tendering process?
Yes, I mean, we work very hard to keep them inside the procurement. Leader of the Opposition is absolutely right. It's better for us to have the widest range of possibilities open to us in terms of the procurement. So a lot of very hard work took place actually before the Carillion collapse and after it to keep them in the procurement. However, we've got two still very robust tenderers to go ahead with, and we're very confident that we will get a good outcome for the citizens of Wales, which I completely agree with him, they richly deserve.
Question 3, Vicky.
Question 3, Vicky Howells.
Will the First Minister, through the Leader of the House, outline the Welsh Government's plans for its lunch and fun clubs this summer?
Yes, in partnership with the WLGA, we will continue increasing the number of local authorities and schools running this scheme by making a further £500,000 available during 2018-19. This will involve working with partners, including local health boards and Public Health Wales, to align agendas, for example, by reducing adverse childhood experiences or increasing sport participation.
Thank you, Leader of the House. It was a real privilege for me last summer to visit the Lunch and Fun Club in Penwain in my constituency and see the positive benefits that this initiative was having. And that's threefold. It's in terms of providing 2 hot meals a day to all pupils who are eligible for free school meals, providing fun educational activities, but also I was interested in the fact that it provided additional work hours for some of the lowest paid school staff as well. Last week saw perhaps the most game-changing announcement on the holiday hunger agenda, with Labour-led North Lanarkshire Council announcing that it is looking to provide meals to its FSM pupils 365 days a year, with an additional cost implication allegedly of only £500,000 for one of the authorities with the highest rates of free school meals. This is backed up by research that shows that it could improve concentration and possibly provide a powerful lever to close the elusive attainment gap between those who are eligible for free school meals and those who are not. Will the Welsh Government look to monitor this pilot and see if it is something which could also be tried in Wales?
Yes, indeed. And the Food and Fun scheme is a great scheme. It's won 7 awards, including an NHS award, recognising the scheme's adherence to the tenets of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And I'm delighted to say the Sustain charity wrote to all UK governments in 2017, highlighting the Welsh model for tackling holiday hunger as the best in the UK. So we're very pleased with what we've got already, and as I said, we are extending it. We will, however, be watching with keen interest the outcome of the North Lanarkshire pilot, which is funded by the local authority, and we'll be looking to consider the evaluations of that pilot in taking our own scheme forward, and I very much hope that it works out and that we can emulate.
Darren Miller.
Leader of the House, one thing which is very important is, of course, to make sure that there is childcare provision in the school holidays and indeed outside of the school holidays. What consideration has the Welsh Government given to the concerns which have been expressed by the Future Generations Commissioner and indeed the Professional Association for Childcare in Early Years about the penalties which grandparents, aunties, uncles, brothers and sisters might face if they are childminding on behalf of their relatives? Surely we want to be encouraging families to share responsibilities for caring, not discouraging them by penalising them because of the Welsh Government's change in its guidance last year.
Well, I share the member's concern, actually, but I'm not sure I'd put it in quite the way that he did. Only registered childminders are currently eligible to receive funding as part of the offer because legislation from 2010 actually states the person looking after a child does not act as a childminder if that person is a parent or relative of the child or a foster parent of the child. So we can't currently fund childminders to care for children who are related to them unless it's part of a wider scheme where they're looking after other children. We have been discussing this with Pacey and we continue to talk to them about what, if any, changes might be made to the legislation ahead of the national rollout of our offer, with a view to seeing what we can do to balance the two slightly conflicting priorities of ensuring that people meet all of the regulations and qualifications and food safety and all the rest of its standards you'd expect for somebody looking after children, and enabling grandparents and so on to take advantage of that scheme. So we are working on that. So I do share some of his concerns, but I wouldn't put it in quite the way he did, and we are actively looking to see what we can do about it.
Cwestiwn 4, Rhina.
Question 4, Rhina Bjorwerth. Thank you, Llywydd. What's the Welsh Government doing to reduce the use of plastic in Wales?
It's written down. Beth mae Llywodraeth Cymru'n un.
What is the Welsh Government doing to reduce the use of plastic in Wales?
Apologies for that. The Welsh Government has ensured that Wales is at the forefront of introducing the charge on single-use carrier bags. Since its introduction, there's been a substantial reduction in single-use plastic carrier bag usage. We're now developing legislation to introduce a microbeads ban in Wales on both the manufacture and sale of those products.
Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi.
Thank you very much for that response. I was very pleased to attend an event at Saesneg last Friday evening where a new campaign was launched to turn Anglesey into a plastic-free island, and what that does is to appeal to people, individuals, businesses, councils to cease the use of plastics in many areas, and there is a motion about to go before Anglesey County Council so that the whole council can take a stance on this. Does the government support this kind of campaign to reduce the amount of plastic in our environment? And will the Leader of the House also agree that we need governmental leadership and legislative leadership from this Assembly too in order to ensure that there is all Wales action to reduce the use of plastics and plastics in our environment?
Yes, indeed. Very much welcome Anglesey's bid for Anglesey to become Wales's first local authority to be official plastic-free status. And I think it includes plans to establish a water refill network across the island, which would be very interested to see how that goes. The member will be well aware that 2018 is Wales's Year of the Sea, so it's very timely to act to protect our natural assets by taking further action of this sort. We've set up the Wales Clean Seas Partnership with a working group to look at these issues and to focus action on preventing the problem at source. The Minister for Environment was pleased to offer her personal congratulations to the plastic-free Newquay campaigners in Newquay last week when they were officially awarded plastic-free status. And it's really pleasing to see Welsh communities taking positive action on the issue. Newquay joins its neighbour Aberporth as official plastic-free communities, and we very much hope that other towns and villages across Wales will follow suit, and it's great to see Anglesey Local Authority taking that initiative. As I said in the initial answer, we are developing legislation to introduce the microbreeds ban in Wales on both the manufacture and sale of products by the 30th of June 2018, we hope. Llantwit Major recently became the first town in Wales to sign up to the Refill app, which encourages people to refill water bottles at shops, cafes and businesses. So we'd like to encourage that sort of thing as well. But I very much welcome it, and we're very much actively looking to see what we can do, both legislatively and culturally, to help people reduce their use of plastics.
Joyce Watson.
Leader of the House, last September, the Cabinet Secretary for Energy, Planning and Rural Affairs announced that she'd commissioned a study that would be looking at ways to, and I quote, increase waste prevention, increased recycling and reduce land and marine-based litter. The study would also be including research on the impacts of extended producer responsibility schemes. Leader of the House, can I ask, when can we expect the findings of that report to be made available?
We've commissioned consultants to conduct a study to examine the potential for extended producer responsibility approaches in Wales, which will help increase recycling and reduce the littering of packaging. I think the research will be focusing on food and drink related packaging, including plastic bottles and cans, and will also include an analysis of a potential deposit return scheme. The Minister for Environment is in fact making a statement on recycling Wales later on in today's agenda. I just think it's worth pointing out that Wales has the highest municipal recycling rate in the UK, second highest in Europe and third highest in the world. So we're doing very well already, but the member is quite right, we could do more, and we will be looking to see what we can do.
David Melding.
Diolch, Llywydd. Leader of the House, I'm sure you'll welcome the decision by the BBC to eliminate by 2020 all single-use plastics from their premises, and the Royal Family, which is an institution nearly as grand and august as the BBC, has said that internal caterers at Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle and the Palace of Holyrood will have to use china plates and glasses or recyclable paper cups. I just wonder if the Welsh Government is going to follow the Royal Family and the BBC's example and do the same on its premises.
I think it's a very laudable aim. I'm not too sure about China ones, but I know that David Melding has heard me on one of my many soapboxes on a number of occasions about my antipathy towards single-use coffee cups and my carrying around to the detriment of the inside of my handbag on occasions coffee cups that can be refilled. And indeed, I'm very pleased that the Assembly largely uses the china cups as well, though we have a little issue with the lids, I think. It's surprisingly hard to eliminate plastic from your life. I've had a go at it myself, and there are some products it's very, very difficult to get hold of without plastic. So there is a big issue about us working with the UK government to ensure that we put some pressure on manufacturers to come up with alternatives. There are lots of things we can do in the meantime, though, and I will certainly be taking up his suggestion on the Welsh Government estate to see what we can do to reduce what we currently have in terms of single plastic use. And if the Llywydd will indulge me for 1 minute, I will repeat something I've already said in this chamber, which I would thoroughly encourage everybody to be using bamboo-handled toothbrushes, which are an excellent substitute for single-use plastic toothbrushes.
Question 5, Susie.
Question 5, Susie Davis.
Will the Minister provide an update on the Welsh Government's monitoring of ambulance service response categories?
Yes, indeed. The new clinical response model is ensuring all patients receive the right response from the right type of clinician and vehicle to optimise their chances of a good outcome, and that patients in most need of immediate intervention receive the fastest response.
Well, thank you. It's that immediate intervention question I want to raise with you, because as you'll be aware, there's been some distressing stories in our neck of the woods where a reported injury has in and of itself perhaps not been life-threatening, but the outcomes for patients have proven serious because secondary factors have not been taken into consideration by the call handlers. We've got one incident where individuals were left for hours in freezing conditions at night in a rural location with an injury which perhaps at home and in front of a warm fire wouldn't have been a problem. In another, an elderly person was left lying for hours on a cold floor after a fall with a fracture which would have proven life-threatening had they been moved by a layperson, of course, which is the temptation when somebody's been left lying too long. And in another correct layperson report of not unconscious, that wasn't interrogated to reveal that the person was barely breathing and actually deteriorated so quickly that the amber categorisation proved a big mistake. So would the Welsh Government consider revisiting the questions asked by call handlers, not for wholesale change of principle, but to allow environmental conditions to be taken into account before refusing a red categorisation?
Yes, my understanding is that the Cabinet Secretary for Health and Social Services has already asked the Chief Ambulance Services Commissioner to review the monitoring of amber calls in order to reduce the time waited by those with the longest response times and to consider how the amber calls are being dealt with. So I'm sure he's heard that additional point that you've made and will be taking that into account.
Question 6, Jack.
Question 6, Jack Sargent.
Thank you. Will the Leader of the House make a statement on investment in transport in North Wales?
Welcome to the Chamber. I think that's your first question, so I'm delighted to be the one answering it. Our plans for investment across North Wales are detailed in the National Transport Finance Plan 2017 update. Our resources are directed to achieving a sustainable integrated transport system which supports all modes of transport.
Thank you. Leader of the House, we know this government is delivering game-changing investments in Allen Deeside, from redevelopment of Shotton Station to the £250 million road investment and improvements across the Deeside corridor. This investment is definitely welcomed by my constituents, but I'm sure you'll agree that we can and should do more. Transport links within the local communities and across North Wales are very important, as are links from the north to south. But I'm sure you'll agree with me that links with our English neighbours are vital. Will the Minister update us on the work being done to ensure that we have a closer economic and transport links with the northwest of England?
Yes, that's very important points. We certainly recognise the importance of improving transport connectivity between North Wales and North West England, and that's why we're working closely with organisations on both sides of the border to develop and deliver improvements across all transport modes. Representatives from Cheshire West and Chester, Merseyside Travel and Wirral are members of the North Wales and North East Wales Metro Steering Group to ensure we plan and deliver improvements in a joined-up way. And in terms of bus services, officers are working closely with Mersey Travel to improve bus connectivity between Liverpool and North Wales. And we're expecting a proposal to be brought forward by a bus operator to run the long-distance service shortly.
Mark Isherwood.
Well, I'm sure, as you're aware, the West and Wales Strategic Rail Prospectus was launched in Westminster yesterday, with Ken Stake speaking alongside the Secretary of State for Transport, Chris Grayling. A proposal developed by a partnership of public and private sector bodies on both sides of the border, and clearly we also support the proposals within that. But parallel to that, and critical to its success, will be the calls in the growth deal bid for North Wales. How therefore does the Welsh Government respond to the call or the invitation in the growth deal bid for North Wales, which has gone to both governments, inviting the Welsh Government to support the formation of a regional transport body and a regional transport fund, where additional powers will be needed to enable the planning of integrated passenger transport networks?
My understanding is it's part of the consideration of the connectivity that I was just talking about. The Cabinet Secretary is indicating to me that it will be part of the consideration. But if the member wants to write for very specific details, I'm sure he'll be happy to give you specifics.
Llyr Griffith.
Diolch, Llywydd.
Thank you, Llywydd. Then all-party group on North Wales heard from the Cabinet Secretary earlier this afternoon on this government's plans to create a series of transport hubs across North Wales, and we welcome the investment of tens of millions of pounds in that infrastructure. But simultaneously, a few weeks ago, we heard or saw the publication of a report that Wales saw the biggest decrease in the number of miles travelled on buses, on public buses throughout the whole of the UK. Now, whilst the government talks of significant capital investment, which is to be welcomed, it's also clear that we need corresponding revenue investment to actually cease these decrease in use of bus services. So would you agree that the risk is that it would be a mistake to invest in transport hubs if we are still losing fundamental services on our buses?
Yes, I think the whole situation with bus transport is a fraught one. We are indeed spending an enormous amount of money on bus transport right across Wales, not just in, in the north of the country. And once we have the bus regulation powers devolved to this to Wales. We will have to have, I think, a fundamental look at how we use that subsidy money, including both revenue and capital subsidies, because I think all of us in this chamber have problems with bus services in our area, and there are some significant difficulties around the planning of the routes and the preponderance of routes where, for example, concessionary travel passes are available and so on. So I completely agree with the member that a fundamental look needs to be had, but I think we need to look and at the point in time we have the power to regulate so that we have a bit more leverage in terms of some of the routes that we would like to see. I'm not familiar with the specific routes in his area, but I can assure you that in my area I have many of the same difficulties, and we will certainly be looking at it again.
Question 7.
Question 7, Mike Hedges.
Will the First Minister or the Leader of the House outline how much funding the Welsh Government is planning to give Mydiad Maithrin in the 2018-2019 financial year?
Yes, grants and contracts totalling more than 3.7 million have so far been allocated to Mydiad Maithrin for this 2018-19 financial year. This includes an additional 1 million to expand Welsh medium early years provision across Wales.
Can I thank you for that answer? I want to raise the importance of Mydiad Maithrin, which gets children to start using Welsh at a very young age, which leads on to them attending Welsh medium schools and thus increasing the number of Welsh speakers in Wales. Will the Welsh Government produce a plan to increase the numbers attending TFE and Mydiad Maithrin, because that is going to be the only way in which that number of Welsh speakers is going to be increased dramatically over the next 20 or 30 years?
Yes, I have some sympathy with what the member's saying, as my own parents are Welsh-speaking, as he knows, and I'm not Welsh-speaking, as they didn't teach it to me as a child, and I've singularly failed to get any better at it than knowing my colours and numbers, I'm ashamed to say. So I think there's a lot to be said for bringing up your children bilingual. Cymraeg for Kids provides advice and support for parents and prospective parents aimed at enabling families to use more Welsh. The programme's targeted at prospective parents and families with children aged 0 to 4, and Mydiad Maithrin delivers local activities and support on behalf of the Welsh Government. These include story and song sessions, baby yoga and baby massage groups. These activities were expanded to all local authorities from April 2017, and the contract for delivery of the activities has been extended to March 2019, as we absolutely agree with the member that the earlier the engagement with the Welsh language and the more frequent that engagement in the family, the more likely it is that their language will stick. We've got a network of more than 400 I can't even say that in Welsh, I'm ashamed to say, gynhelir, TFV, parent and toddler groups across Wales. These provide activities promoting the development of children from birth to school age and offer the opportunities for families to socialise in an informal Welsh atmosphere. And I'm going to add something else in that I know from my digital portfolio myself, which is that I very much encourage everybody to get as much Welsh onto Wikipedia as possible and onto the web, because what we find is that if youngsters can use it in their day-to-day activities as part of their socialisation, then they tend to use Welsh much more frequently amongst their peer group outside of the school setting, and that also helps to cement the use of Welsh language in their lives. And so we've been trying to encourage that for some considerable period of time. The additional 1 million to support the work in 2018-19 will enable them to make rapid progress to expand Welsh medium early years provision, and it'll be used to undertake work specifically aimed at establishing new settings in areas with a current shortage of Welsh medium childcare provision as well.
Susie Davis.
Diolch. Well, this money is very welcome, and of course it's a very important seed corn investment for the 1 million speakers policy by 2050. But you can't make the assumption that just because a child goes to TFE and Mydiad Maithrin that they will continue to use Welsh throughout their lives, particularly when they leave school. While it might be quite difficult to monitor the progress of individuals using Welsh when they perhaps learn it online, it should be easy to track the progress of a child and whether they develop and use their Welsh throughout their life. Is that something that's part of Welsh Government's plans within the 2050 strategy?
I'm not absolutely certain whether that specific is, but I know that the review of Welsh in Education strategic plans undertaken by Aled Roberts in 2017 included recommendations to strengthen the strategic relationship between local authorities and Mydiad Maithrin to ensure growth at local authority level, to contribute to the Welsh Government target for 2015, and to ensure the system for capital investment takes need of the preschool provision into account in order to plan more effectively for the transition between preschool and primary phase. So that's partly answering your question in the sense that we are tracking people from preschool into the primary stage provision. But I'll ask the Minister with responsibility for the Welsh language to specifically answer your question.
Llywydd Griffith.
Diolch Llywydd a gaina hefyd.
Thank you, Llywydd, and may I also welcome the fact that the agreement between Plaid Cymru and the Government on the budget had secured these additional resources for Mydiad Maithrin, But I would disagree to a certain extent with the point that Susie Davis made, because the evidence shows that if you do go to Welsh medium preschool education, then you're far more likely to go on to Welsh medium education than if you don't. And we are talking here of a government strategy to secure 1 million Welsh speakers by 2050. But I would like to refer specifically to the childcare offer that the government is now developing and the crucial role that that has in ensuring that as many children as possible in that preschool age group are caught within the Welsh medium continuum rather than starting their journey out with that continuum. Because once you've lost them in those early years, the great likelihood is that they won't come into Welsh medium education and that they won't become bilingual. So may I ask, how are you ensuring that all children will have access to Welsh medium services in terms of the childcare offer, and also the need to ensure that there is sufficient workforce in place to secure that provision?
Yes, well, the member's quite right. We did put the additional £1 million invested in to enable them to respond to the challenge set out in Cymraeg 2050 to make rapid progress in expanding Welsh medium early years provision. We've delivered over 2,000 groups so far during 2017-18, providing support and advice to enable families to use more Welsh. And the member's absolutely right. There's real data to show that preschool activity does lead on to Welsh medium activity. And as I was saying to Susie Davis, we've extended our monitoring of that to make sure that we have the data available. And we've extended the contract for delivery of the activities as well to March 2019. And as the lead organisation within Cwlwm, a consortium of 5 leading childcare organisations in Wales, Mudiad Maithrin has also undertaken projects aimed at delivering a bilingual integrated service that will ensure the best possible outcomes for children and families across Wales, with a view to that bilingualism, as opposed to teaching Welsh as a foreign language, which is, I think, is a policy that hasn't stood us the test of time, and I'm living proof of how well it doesn't work.
Question 8, Rhiannon.
Question 8, Rhiannon Passmore.
Will the First Minister provide, or the Leader of the House, an update on the Welsh Government's assessment of the impact of leaving the European Union for Islam?
Leaving the European Union will affect every community in Wales. In particular, jobs, businesses and public services in Islwyn, and indeed across Wales, will be critically dependent on securing full and unfettered access to the single market and a customs union, which are our top priorities.
Diolch. Leader of the House. David Liddington, UK Tory Government Minister for the Cabinet Office, speaking at Airbus in North Wales, offered to rewrite the alleged flagship Brexit bill to address the concerns of the devolved administrations in Wales and Scotland. The First Minister of Wales, in reply, has stated, as currently drafted, the EU withdrawal bill allows the UK government to take control of devolved policy areas, such as farming and fishing, once the UK has left the EU. This is an unacceptable attack on devolution in both Wales and Scotland. Leader of the House, what further actions can the Welsh Government take to ensure that the UK Tory Government respects the hard-fought devolution settlement to this Assembly, and how can the Welsh Government safeguard the economic interests of the people of Islwyn once the United Kingdom leaves the European Union?
Yes, well, the member makes a very important point, and of course we've been in extended negotiations with the UK government about the respect for the devolution settlement as indicated in the EU withdrawal bill. We will be looking to bring forward a bill, the continuity bill, and I'm very pleased for myself to see Stefan in the chamber this afternoon, but to bring forward that continuity bill to ensure that the devolution settlement is properly reflected in the EU withdrawal bill, and thus we're able to protect our economy, our jobs and our future prospects.
Mohammed Ashka.
Minister, last week Professor Patrick Minford of Cardiff University told, listen. Yes, I listen. He told the Cardiff University that Welsh Affairs Select Committee that Welsh consumers will benefit enormously from the lower prices as a result of competition and rising productivity resulting from...
I do need to hear the member, please. Carry on, Mohammed Ashka.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Resulting from leaving the custom unions and the single market. He predicted that poorer households such as those in Islwyn would make even bigger gains. Why the Welsh government is so dismissive and negative of the views of economists like Professor Minford and reluctant to recognise the economic opportunities resulting from the Brexit for Wales?
Professor Minford is a little of an outlier amongst economic professors, and in fact I think he's entirely alone in his analysis of the Welsh economic prospects without the EU. Our economic analysis shows that over the long term, our economic output could be up to 8 to 10% lower than otherwise if we leave the single market and are forced to trade under World Trade Organization rules. This is in line with other published economic analysis and the reports of the UK government's own assessment. This is equivalent to around £1,500 to £2,000 a head. The impact on the UK's economy will hit the public finances available to provide public services. Following a long period of sustained austerity, this will only make worse the continued challenge of delivering our priorities within the context of growing, precious and an ever-decreasing budget. Economic growth and jobs in Is-deitlau are being supported through multi-million-pound European Union funding schemes, including working skills for adults, bridges into work, apprenticeships and the smart business and innovation schemes. The benefits these schemes are creating for our communities, people and businesses demonstrate the need for replacement funding for the UK government after we leave the EU. Otherwise, I'm afraid Professor Minford will find himself once again on the wrong side of the academic argument.
Ac yn ola, Steffan Llawn.
Finally, Steffan Lewis.
Llywydd, I deeply regret the newfound politicking and ducking and weaving on the question of the single market. That was apparent yesterday in the UK Labour leader's speech on his vision for a future relationship with the European Union. There are real consequences to leaving the single market for real people. One of those will be that we will lose the right to benefit from clinical trials from the European Medicines Agency. Only EEA and EU member states benefit from clinical trials and treatments. So I'd like to have reassurance from the Leader of the House, and this isn't something you can achieve, by the way, through free and unfettered access. You have to be a member of the single market to benefit from EMA membership and for your citizens to benefit from the clinical trials. Can we have a commitment that you will robustly oppose any attempt by a government of any colour in Westminster to deny Welsh citizens the access to the best and cutting-edge treatment that they can be provided with?
Yes, I am very happy to categorically say that. We've never made any bones about the fact that we need to stay inside those arrangements. It's disastrous for research of all sorts, not just clinical research, across Wales and across the UK, to be outside of those far-reaching partnership arrangements for that cutting-edge research. So I'm very happy to say that that remains our position, and we will be robustly defending it at whatever level.
Diolch I arweinydd.
Thank you, Leader of the House. And the next item, believe is on.